Hey, my name is Santiago Alvarez, and in this video, we're going to be covering a complete Google Local Services ads for law firms. So Google Local Service ads have been working extremely well for some of our clients, and we've had this video requested by several other law firms. So we figured we'd make a full comprehensive guide, which will cover everything from beginner basics as to like how to get started, how they even work, all the way to more advanced strategies that are working extremely well and can make you get the absolute most out of local service ads. So whether you're a complete beginner or you've been doing it for a while, I'm sure you'll be able to get some value from this video. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. So I have prepared a 13-page guide on Google Local Service ads, and if you're interested in getting it, it is just the first link in the description. So to start, well, what even are Google Local Service ads? So it refers to a type of advertisement that shows up at the very top of Google's search results page for local searches. So you can see here where you see the rock, that is typically where they show up. Below that you have search ads, below that you typically have the maps pack, and below that you have all the organic results. So they're an extremely powerful tool for law firms that are looking to get more clients in 2024. Unlike normal Google ads that work on a PPC, pay-per-click model, where you bid on keywords and you pay each time someone clicks on your ad, LSAs operate on a pay-per-lead basis, which means that you only pay when someone contacts you directly through the ad. So obviously this makes it quite appealing. This approach is appealing because you don't have to worry about competitors clicking on your ads and paying for that, receiving spam clicks, paying to receive a sales call. I mean, they're all extremely painful problems, and especially given the legal industry's insanely high average cost per clicks, it can be super unforgiving. So, unlike pay-per-click ads, LSAs also come with a Google screened badge, and it's Google guaranteed for some other types of businesses, but for law firms it's Google screened, which does come with some implied credibility. Whether it's actual screening and it's very rigorous, well, that's up for debate, but you can also argue that they do help with this. With all that being said, they are not a silver bullet. This guide will outline the pros, the cons, and how you can get started if you decide that this is a good fit for your law firm. So why even consider local service ads for your law firm? So as I mentioned before, they offer several compelling advantages over different advertising channels and methods. So the first is that they show up at the top of Google results. So to show a relevant example, for the query best car accident lawyers in Los Angeles, you can see here are the local service ads. So just a disclaimer, we are not associated with these firms. It is solely for the example. And you can see here are the local service ads at the very top. They have an image, they stand out. Below it are the search ads that I mentioned before. Below that is the maps pack that you can see here. And below that is the organic results. And at the very bottom of the page, you will also see some more search ads. So this makes it extremely appealing because most people that are searching for this, to be honest, are not really going to scroll past. Like if this is all that you see when you go on it, if you're desperate to contact someone, you're probably going to go to one of these two, or you're even going to click on show more and see more, because there's actually a big list if you open it up, as you can see, right? And you can even get even more if you click here, right? So you will see a lot, right? There's a lot of different people in Los Angeles running local service ads, right? So another standout feature is the pay-per-lead model, as I mentioned before. It means that you only pay when someone contacts you, whether that's by phone, whether it's message or direct booking, and this is different from obviously the PPC model that I outlined before, but it's also different from most other advertising models where you pay regardless of whether your ad target audience takes action or not. So if you're comparing it to television ads, billboards, or social media advertisements, I mean, with those, you're just paying to reach a certain amount of people, and then you're not actually paying for clicks, you're not paying for leads. So this makes it extremely appealing because your advertising dollars can be spent more efficiently, making sure that you're only paying for leads, not just paying to have people look at your ads that they couldn't even use your services. The third benefit is that they build trust with the Google screened badge. So it definitely stands out because all of these have a tick. It all mentions that it's screened for all of them. As I mentioned before, the screening process isn't overly rigorous. You could probably be an unethical lawyer and still get screened, that Google screened, but it does add some credibility, especially when you compare it to the rest of the results, which don't have it. And the fourth main benefit is that you reach high intent leads. So the local service ads are only going to show up for queries that is people that are actually looking to hire a lawyer. It's not going to show up for like, what does a lawyer even do, right? That's very unlikely. So this makes it that the leads are highly targeted and more likely to convert into paying clients because they're already in the needs of the services that you offer. So unlike other forms of marketing and advertising where you might reach a broad audience with varying levels of interest, LSAs just focus on connecting you with the bottom of funnel people that are ready to take action now. So with all that being said, it is important to consider who shouldn't consider local service ads. And whilst they do work extremely well, they are definitely not the best fit for everyone. Here are some situations where they might not be the right choice for you. The first is if you have poor intake systems and processes. So if you already struggle managing inquiries, you don't have really solid processes surrounding intake, they're probably not the best option. And honestly, advertising in general is probably not the best option. We typically try to help our clients fix their intake before it, because the last thing that you want to do is start advertising and you're just burning money because you're not converting anyone. It's like having a leaking pipe. No matter how much water is going, no matter how strong the throughput is, if you have a massive leak, you're just not going to get anything out the other end. So they can definitely generate a significant volume of inquiries, but if your intake system is not up to par, you're going to end up losing potential clients and you're paying for these leads. So as I mentioned before, the legal industry is unforgiving. You simply just cannot afford this. So make sure that your intake process is streamlined and dialed in before you consider local service ads or other methods of advertising for that matter. Second, for firms with very few reviews. So to run local service ads, Google says that you need at least 5 reviews on your Google business profile. If you don't have these reviews yet, or if gathering reviews has been a challenge, they might not be effective for you, because when you think about it, if you're comparing all the different law firms and there's one that has thousands of reviews and they're 5-star rated, or you see another one that has 5 and they're also 5-star rated, which one are you more likely to trust as a potential customer? If we go back here, you will notice this one has 1 review, but the one below it, 215, 270, no ratings for this one, 9, 144. Sometimes we see firms that have thousands, right? It's definitely a big credibility difference. That being said, they can work if you have less reviews, but a lot of the time they just work significantly better if you have more reviews. So we'll get into strategies for getting more reviews later. Next, firms with bad reviews. If your firm has a history of negative reviews, local service ads will probably not work in your favor. Potential clients are going to see your reviews before contacting you, and a low rating or numerous negative comments can deter them from reaching out. So you got to make sure that you fix issues with your reviews before considering local service ads. And if you're interested in seeing our guide on how to remove negative Google reviews, just go here, or also there should be a link somewhere around this video that takes you to the video that we created on this if you're interested. Because if you look and you're comparing these ones, these are all very high rated lawyers, but if you click on them and you're doing some more research and then you're looking at their reviews and you see a lot of red flags as a potential customer, well, you're probably not going to go to them, you're going to go to the next firm. So you've got to keep that in mind. Next, this is definitely not for firms that are not willing to deal with unqualified leads. So whilst it can bring in a lot of leads, it's important to mention that not all of them will be high quality. It's important to have your expectations set in the right place. You're not just going to get 100% conversion rates out of local service ads. It just doesn't work like that. So you have to keep in mind, some inquiries are going to come from individuals that are not qualified. Some of them are not even serious about hiring an attorney. Sometimes they just have a question. It's part of the game. That's how it works. It doesn't mean that they're not profitable, but it just means that sometimes you have to sift through the unqualified leads to find the diamonds in the rough. So if you're not ready for that, they're going to become a source of frustration rather than an asset. So keep that in mind. So next, about getting started. So to set up local service ads, you first need to have a Google business profile. And if you don't have one, you can follow the steps in this document to create one. And if you already have one, which is the case for most law firms, make sure that everything is accurate and up to date. Make sure you've responded to reviews, that especially the negative ones that need attention. And the better your reputation, the better your ads will perform. So to start, you will simply search up Google local service ads. You go to this link, which takes you here, and then you click Get Started. So that will take you to this page where it says Earn Your Badge of Trust, where it says Google Guaranteed. Obviously, as I mentioned before, you don't have Google Guaranteed if you're a law firm. But you go Continue, then you go Check Eligibility, and you put your state. So for example, we might put California, job category, and then we're just going to put, there's different types of law firms, but you can just put law, and you can put your law firm. So for this example, we are just going to do personal injury law and check eligibility, which will then take you to this page where it says get more customers. So here you have to fill in all of your information. So obviously I'm not going to go through this because I am not a law firm, but we do this for all of our clients. You want to put in your business name, your business registration name. I try to fill it out as much as possible. Your phone, I would put your website, the first name, the address. If there's a location that they can visit, just make sure you fill it out as much as possible. So after you've filled that out, you're going to have to complete the background check and licensing verification. So Google requires law firms to pass the background check. That's how they get the Google screened and verify their license before the ads can go live. So it partners with a third-party company. I'm pretty sure it's evident to conduct the background checks on the business owner and in some cases key employees. So this is standard for all businesses that use local service ads. And for the license verification, you'll need to provide proof of your legal license. So typically that's just a state bar number, and Google will verify that your firm and all relevant attorneys are properly licensed to practice law in your service area. So after that, you want to set up your service area and services. So during the LSA process, you'll be asked to define that. What I would recommend is start narrow with both. So start narrow with the service area. If you want to be hyper specific and only put a few zip codes, you can do that. Typically we select a county or potentially a city. Rarely we do a whole state. We want to be super narrow, and then you can always make it more broad if needed. And also the same with the services. You really do not want to go broad with the services because that limits how much you can dispute. If you put that you can do anything and everything, you're going to get a lot of unqualified leads from many different areas. You're not going to be able to dispute them. You are not going to be happy. So I recommend start narrow, go expanding if you need to. Next is creating your ad profile. So this is what potential clients are going to see when your local service ads appears in search results. It includes key information such as your business name, hours of operation, and reviews. So for business name, obviously use your law firm's official name. Make sure your hours are accurate and reflect when you're available to take calls. I would most definitely not recommend running ads outside of the hours you can take calls. You're just going to burn your money, because if you're a potential client and you're looking at a lot of different firms, you might call one, they might not pick up. You're just going to call the next firm. You're still getting billed for that. It's your fault that you didn't answer the phone. It's not the potential client's fault. You shouldn't be running the ads at those times. So keep that in mind. You don't want to pay to receive nothing. Next, you want to upload a professional photo of yourself, your team, or your office as well. You can see photos, but typically there's one single portrait. You want to make this photo stand out. A lot of the time, so many images look all the same. They're very serious, they're very bland. A different background that stands out is typically what we like to do. So maybe like a bright green background, maybe outdoors, something that makes a photo stand out. Like there's not that much to compare. If you have very similar reviews to the next firm, the name doesn't really make a difference. You can't really tell the reputation from the local service ads. You need to make your ads stand out in some way, and a photo is something that has definitely helped us. It's helped some smaller firms that have less reviews, a lesser reputation in the city, outperform some of the bigger firms. Next, your reviews from your Google business profile are automatically going to populate here. So if you know that you want to run local service ads, start encouraging past clients to leave reviews as soon as possible. So you've obviously heard me say it many times, but reviews is super important. And it's not just important for local service ads, it's important for also your organic results. But if you're running local service ads and you're spending money on it, you definitely want to prioritize your reviews. Next, you want to set your budget. So you want to decide on how much you want to spend on local service ads. You're going to pay per lead, so your budget will control how many leads you receive. I recommend starting off with a modest budget and increase it as you see results. Google is going to provide you with an estimate of how many leads you can expect based on this budget, but what we found is that this estimate can be extremely hit or miss, so take it with a grain of salt. And be mindful that they can spend very quickly. Sometimes if you have a small budget, they're going to spend your monthly budget in just a few days, so keep that in mind. Next is launching your ads. So once everything is set up and verified, you can launch your local service ads. You should definitely download the apps to constantly keep your finger on the pulse, so you're always checking and always knowing what's going on. And make sure you have a process in place to respond to these leads as quickly as possible. The faster you respond, the more likely you are to convert the lead into a client. So by following these steps, you should be able to go from a complete beginner to actually getting started. So next is understanding local service ads. So to navigate the local service ads interface, you want to understand sort of how it works. So it's got several different tabs. It's got for leads, reports, reviews, profile and budget, as well as some others. Let me show you how it looks. So you can see here, you have business verification, you have leads, policy manager, reports, reviews, profile and budget, billing, promotions, account access, notifications. The most important ones is leads, also reports. I would also monitor the reviews and profile and budget. So for business verification, this is how it looks. You can just see all of the different steps for the verification of the Google screened ad. So you need to have a headshot for the ad that is verified by Google. You need to prove that you have a lawyer business license. You need to have customer reviews. You need to set your bidding and budget, so the bidding strategy. You need to set up your billing information, obviously, so that you can pay Google. And you need to list all of the lawyers and all of their details. Next is the leads tab, which is quite important. So you can see it here. Typically, you will be able to see all of your leads, and you can select based on the status. So whether that's active, booked, completed, or archived, we'll just go to active for this example, and you can see all of the different leads in here. Booked is the ones that you can book with Google, and completed is the ones that you manually mark as completed. And here you can see the job type, whether it matches. So this account is for an auto accident attorney. So you can see that there's been a few that we've explicitly marked as auto accidents. Location sometimes will show up, and sometimes we will fill it out. You can see the lead type, so whether it's phone, message, or direct booking as well. And the charge status, so whether it's in review, so Google is actually reviewing, whether it's charged, whether it wasn't charged, and whether it was credited because it was a faulty lead. So going on to the policy manager, this isn't really a very relevant tab. It's only if you have policy issues. Moving on to reports, which is quite important. So in reports, you'll be able to see your total lead spend, which is blurred out for this example. You'll be able to see how many charged leads you got. So in this case, it was 11. It was 10 phone leads and 1 message leads in a pretty short amount of time. You'll be able to see how many people actually saw your ads, and you'll be able to see how many times you were at the top of search and how many times you were at the absolute top of search. So 38% of the time that we showed up, we were the very top result. So it's an interesting statistic, and here you'll be able to see how many leads you got. So we only started running them on the 20th of August, and that's when they started to take off. And here you'll be able to see your leads again. So moving on to reviews, here you'll be able to monitor and respond to all of your reviews. You can see here, and you also have the ability to ask for reviews for leads that have also gone through. So if you use Google to book appointments, your customer will get reminders of their upcoming appointments. Typically, we don't do this because we have our own internal reminder systems, but Google can also help you gather reviews. So if you really need help, Google can definitely help you. If not, we typically recommend that you do it yourself. You can typically do a better job. Moving on, you have the profile and budget tab as well. So here you'll be able to see all of your details, your website, your license verification, the phone that you've actually put down, the postal code. You can also change your business bio, which I heavily recommend doing. Here, you can put some of your best selling points. So for example, 18 years in business, beat or match price, etc. Whatever you think are your best selling points, you can put them here. It's not that you can type anything. Google gives you a list of some that you can actually select. But go through it, fill it out as much as possible, because you have to sell your firm, make a difference from you as well as some of the other ones. So you can see here whether it's speak Spanish, whether they're specific to lawyer or personal injury lawyer. We have put the same for both. Obviously, if you have any accreditations, you can put them down as well. Next is for budget and bidding. So you will obviously set your average weekly budget. You will see how many leads you got, and then you can set the bidding strategy. So there's 2 bidding strategies. You can set a max amount that you're willing to pay per lead, and then also another one which is automated bidding, which is maximized leads. So for this client, we're actually using maximized leads. We've experimented with both, and for them, we've gotten better results with maximized leads. That being said, we'll get into which specific bidding strategy you should choose in just a minute. So to do with job types, this is a personal injury law firm. So you can see here that you can choose different types. We have only selected auto accidents and motorcycle accidents because that's all that we want. Even with this selected, we do still receive some product liability cases, some slip and fall. So that's why I mentioned before that you want to start narrow and then broaden it. If you select all of these, you're going to get a lot of everything. So I wouldn't recommend that. Next, you see here message leads. So you can receive messages from leads. Typically, we recommend to have this on because message leads cost 50% of what phone call or booking leads costs. And then you can determine after a while whether they're worth it, whether they have similar conversion rates. Honestly, we found that message leads convert at a lower rate, but given the fact that they're half as cheap, they can still be worth it. And Google also prefers it when you give it more options. So that's why we like to do it. Then you will see here direct business search. I would definitely recommend to have this off. So essentially what this says is that you let local service ads highlight your business in results when someone searches for your brand or business directly. It says you will not be charged for leads from returning customers. So it's very difficult to define what it means by returning customers, but if someone was to search up your business name and they were referred by a client, well, that's not a returning customer, and you might be paying for that. So I would definitely recommend not having that on, because if someone is looking for you specifically, they're probably going to be able to find your website or find your information somewhere else. I would not recommend it. And then you also have the option to get leads looking for general law help. I would not recommend this unless you really want a lot of leads and you're willing to take anything and everything. But for most, I just don't think it's necessary. Next, you have professional. So this is a single attorney firm, which is why we only have one. If you have many different lawyers, you will see them all here, and you see the headshot. So obviously it's blurred out for the client's confidentiality, but you can see that it's got a green background because we really want it to stand out. You can also select the service area. So we've selected Clark County in Las Vegas. And before it was even a little bit more narrow. So we've broadened it a little bit, but we wouldn't go as far as Reno because this is the Las Vegas firm. And you see the business hours here are 24 hours every day because she has someone to answer calls at all times. So I hope that gave you a pretty good overview as to what their local service ads interface is like, sort of how you can work your way around it. Those are the most important tabs that we covered. How leads are delivered. So leads are typically delivered via email or SMS, depending on your settings. They will also appear in the leads tab that I showed before. And obviously, if they call the number on the ad, you will receive the phone call. So the information that comes with lead does vary. So for phone call leads, you will obviously get their phone number. For message leads, it depends. Sometimes they will fill it out. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes you won't have the option to call them back because they didn't select it. And as I mentioned before, you want to note that they are 50% price of the corresponding phone lead. So as to what the notification can look like, as you can see here, this is a typical email, new call from a potential customer. So it shows when they called you, and you can click view details, which will take you straight to the lead. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And to sort of understand the contacting, so if you are to select a message, you will go here, and then you can put your phone optional. So that's what I mean. Sometimes you're not going to receive it because the customer didn't put it. Whenever they don't put their phone number, honestly, these leads are very low intent and they're difficult to get a hold of because they might be contacting another firm, they might be calling, and they're just going to beat you to it. People don't check their emails as much as they check their phone, so it makes it quite difficult. With that being said, we still recommend having message leads, but you just have to keep that in mind. Next, you want to understand key features and metrics. So total leads is obviously the total number of leads that you've received. Is pretty obvious. The cost per lead is the average amount that you've paid for each lead. So you want to calculate it once you have the total leads and the total amount spent. Again, it's pretty basic stuff. Lead status, so you want to track that as well. You can do it in your CRM, or you can actually do it in the leads tab here as well. You can manage it here as well. So you can go active, booked, completed. Just make sure you manage your leads. Next, you want to monitor your reviews, your overall rating, and the number of reviews, which can influence your ad ranking significantly. We'll get into that more in just a minute. Next, your conversion rates are the percentage of leads that actually turn into paying clients. You won't be able to track this with Google, but track it in a spreadsheet, track it in your CRM. Make sure you're aware of this, and then do an analysis. Use the reports to break down the quality of leads that you've been receiving. Are they relevant to your practice area? Are they converting at a high rate? We have a spreadsheet where we can see all of the leads, sort of the outcome of them, whether they retained, whether they didn't, whether they were qualified, whether they weren't, and then we can see whether they're worth it and get a really clear overview of our client's cost per case. So you want to track it a lot because what you don't track, you can't improve. Next, so onto the more juicy stuff. So these are the advanced strategies. Now, to truly get the most out of your local service ads, it is essential to go beyond just the basics and implement some more advanced techniques to truly get the most out of them. So for these strategies, there are two core sections. One is you want to improve your ad's performance, and the second is to improve the conversion rate after the ad has done its job. So once it's generated the lead, that's what it's trying to do. Now, before we get into the specific strategies, it is important to recognize what Google prioritizes with local service ads. So, as you can see here, they prioritize a combination of factors like your verification status, which if you're running local service ads, you have been verified, your bid, obviously how much are you willing to bid, and the bidding strategy, your reviews, your past responsiveness, which is a really big one that we're going to cover a lot. Relevancy, unfortunately, you don't have too much control over this because if you're an auto accident attorney and someone is searching for a slip and fall attorney, well, your relevance is quite low. And whether you have alternative methods of contacting available, so whether you have messages available, whether you have booking available, and also the quality of images. So if you want to see what Google says, you can go to this link as well. And it just covers the ones that I just covered, just in a bit more detail if you want to do some more learning. And again, you can access this document with the first link in the description. So to improve your ad performance, so the amount of leads that you're actually generating, you want to get more and better reviews. So this has been mentioned already like 5 to 10 times in this video, but it is so important. It should be one of your top priorities. The more positive reviews that you have, the better your local service ads are going to perform. And also, the better your organic listing is going to perform. You're just going to win in two different ways. When you have more positive reviews, it will definitely undermine the impact of any negative reviews that you might have. So in another video, we covered how you can actually remove negative reviews, but it is inevitable. The more you're in business, you're just going to get a 1-star review. It might not be because you did a bad job. It might just be that someone didn't like your advertising. Someone was in a bad mood when you spoke to them on the phone and they were unqualified. Maybe they even left a review on the wrong business. It's just going to happen, and you have to keep that in mind. But if you have hundreds of 5-star reviews and just 5 1-star reviews, or even 1, it's going to look a lot better than if you have 5 stars and 5 1-stars. So keep that in mind. And before running your LSAs, as I've mentioned before, make sure you do the absolute most to encourage your past and obviously satisfied clients to leave you positive Google reviews. And if there is interest, we can make videos on strategies on how to actually maximize the amount of Google reviews that you get. Also, be sure to respond to all of the reviews, whether they are positive or negative. This is very important. If it's a negative review, you're not always going to be able to take it down, but you can always respond. And people will see that. When people are researching your firm, they will see how you responded to negative reviews because they stand out. Google pushes them quite highly, unfortunately. So if you responded in a very professional way and you sort of outlined what happened, maybe you outlined that the person is a competitor, maybe you outlined that the experience was or is being shared in a very one-sided lens, whatever it is, if you outline it in the response, you can clarify it. But if there is nothing there, it's just going to make it look like you're just hiding, and it's the truth. The people that are leaving the 1-star reviews, it's true what they're saying. So make sure you respond, and keep in mind that obviously there are sometimes bar restrictions depending on the state as to what you can actually say. So your next top priority should be responding to leads faster. So by responding to leads faster, you will improve the performance of your local service ads in 3 key ways. The first is to improve your conversion rate post-ad. So this is something we're going to cover in more depth in just a bit, but it goes without saying. Obviously, if you respond to leads faster, you're going to convert more leads. Typically, when leads are going through them, they're just here. They might be calling 5 different firms. If you pick up and you just convince them on why you are the right fit, and you do that first, you're going to get the client. Typically, people choose the first competent attorney to respond to them. They don't necessarily choose the best attorney because they don't know who the best attorney is. So you want to be the fastest and the best. Also, it's preferred by Google. So as we covered before, it's one of the important factors here. You can see your past responsiveness. So Google actually tracks how fast you respond to inquiries, and based on this, they sort of develop like a credit score, which will affect how high your ad will rank. If you're responding very slow, not only are you going to have a poor conversion rate post-ad, obviously, but Google is not going to prefer your ads. It tracks this and it knows it. If you're never picking up your calls, if you're never responding to the messages, Google is less likely to show your ads because you're giving a bad experience to the person using local service ads. Think about it. Google's goal is to create the best user experience. And if the user goes and it uses a local service ads, which is Google's product, they use Google's product and then they have a terrible experience because no one responds, they are less likely to use it again in the future, which means the lifetime value of that customer for Google actually goes down. So what Google wants to do is give them the best possible experience with the local service ads, so they're more likely to use it again in the future, whether that's to hire another lawyer, whether that's to hire a different type of business. They want their users to have the best possible experience. And finally, it's also favored by prospects. So Google actually shows how fast a business typically replies. And if you're in need of a law firm and you're comparing your options and you can see how long they're going to take to reply, you're just going to message the one which is fastest. So let me show you how that looks. So here you can see, if you click on the different ones, it says typically replies in, and it's typically for some firms. So typically replies in a few minutes, as you can see here. For some of them, it doesn't say. Maybe Google doesn't have enough information. Sometimes it says typically replies in 1 day, but obviously the lower you get it, so you see typically replies in a few minutes again, typically replies in a few minutes. We've seen some that take a long time, typically replies in 15 minutes, as you can see here, in a few minutes, in a few minutes, in 15 minutes, in a few hours, right? So obviously it's going to affect it, typically replies in 1 day, right? So if you're a prospect and you're going through these and you see that, for example, there's one option that will typically reply in 1 day and you see another option that typically replies in a few minutes, well, it's obvious who you're going to choose. You're probably desperate. You want to talk to someone now. It might even be outside of business hours, but you don't really care about that. You want to talk to someone now. So that's why the responsiveness is so important. So how can you actually improve this? I'm not saying that you have to have your phone by your bed all the time and whenever it rings, you have to pick it up at 2 or 3 in the morning. That's just crazy. You definitely don't want to do that. But you want to have an automation that fires every time that you receive a message, and you want to have someone available to answer the phone at all times. So whether that is getting an answering service, whether that's getting more staff, you need to find a method. And if you want a video on this, we can also do it. Basically, we are very open to video ideas. If you ever have one or you have any questions that you want us to answer, leave it in the comments. We'll make a personalized video for you. But what we do for messages specifically is we have an automation that fires anytime we receive a message. So this makes it so our average response time is actually seconds rather than minutes, hours, or even days. So this really benefits our clients, and it's improved the performance of their ads like crazy. And for calls, make sure that you have someone ready to answer calls, as I mentioned before. So if you don't have someone to answer calls outside of business hours, just don't run ads at those times. Do it when someone can answer calls, and make sure that they're actually ready and prepared to answer the calls. And in terms of intake strategies, we'll get into that in just a bit. So you also want to have a scheduling option. So this is super heavily underutilized at the moment. We are actually not sure why. You can have a third contact method, which is actually a scheduling option. And I think the reason behind this is due to the fact that it's not so straightforward to set up, and you need a compatible CRM for this. And if there is interest, we can create a video guide on how you can actually set this up. But as you can see here, you can connect and integrate Reserve with Google. So you'll be able to book directly from the local service ads, which is great. So not only will this help from the perspective of Google prioritizing your ad, because as we covered before, it's one of the alternative methods of booking is impacts how it prioritizes ads. So not only will it help from that perspective, but it will also help convert some potential clients that would much rather prefer a consult as opposed to calling to set it up or messaging to set it up. If they have an option with one firm and they don't have the option with the next firm, they might go to the first firm and just book the appointment directly. So keep that in mind. And also, improving image quality. It's very simple, it's a very small thing, but it can make a big difference. If you get better images, your ad is just going to stand out more, and you might be able to get leads despite not being the top listing. We always edit our clients' profile shots so that they have a background that stands out a lot, and I think this has contributed significantly to their ads beating some of their much larger competitors. So if you look at local service ads in your area, you're going to find that some of them have a pretty bland background. So this is a tiny competitive advantage, but if you're spending a lot of money on local service ads, you want to make all these tiny 1% improvements because they will definitely add up to your bottom line. Next, you want to experiment with bidding strategies. So the reason why it's called experimenting is because there is no correct strategy. We've tried both, and we haven't seen conclusive evidence yet for either strategy. The strategies are maximize leads, which is what's recommended by Google. So here Google sets your bid and you get the most leads for your budget. So obviously Google is going to recommend it because they like having control. They're not a non-profit. That's just all that I'm going to say. The other option is to set a max per lead, where you can manually set your own bid, which is the most that you pay for a lead. And keep in mind that it takes about 2 weeks to see accurate results as the model adjusts and actually understands your firm. So the main thing that we have noticed with this is that changing things around is very delicate with local service ads. So if you're really tight on budget, go for max per lead. And if you want to be more aggressive, use maximized leads. You want to determine that. But don't change it around 1 week and the next. Google really does not like that. They want to have control. They like predictability. Just in our experience, we've seen it when we change it from one to the other. The ads can go from performing extremely well to completely crashing. So keep that in mind. And even when you change it back, it doesn't mean it's just going to go back to what it was before. So next is improving post-ad conversion rates. So when it comes to improving them, the main thing is improving lead to consult conversion rates and also consult to client conversion rates. So for improving lead to consult, a lot of it is just tracking and managing your leads. So you want to use your CRM to categorize and track leads based on their status, whether that's new, in progress, converted. You want to track all the leads. You don't want anyone to slip through the cracks. You also want to follow up. You're not going to get a lot of the leads immediately. Sometimes they're going to call and they're not going to convert straight away. You want to have a consistent follow-up process to ensure that the most amount of leads possible convert, and schedule follow-up calls and emails if a lead doesn't respond initially. You also want to track lead sources. So determine which ones come from LSAs versus other channels, and then you'll be able to see the effectiveness of your LSA campaign. And you also want to have multi-channel follow-ups. So use phone, email, text to follow up with leads. you're paying for these leads, and sometimes you're paying a lot, so you really want to make the most out of every single one. And if a lead typically responds to their email more, you want to cater to that. Or if they respond to text more, it varies from lead to lead. It varies based on the demographic of your practice area, but even lead to lead. So for example, estate planning, which typically has an older demographic, that doesn't necessarily mean that all potential estate planning clients prefer the same thing. Some of them prefer a phone call, some prefer email, some prefer text. It depends. So offer all three. Do all three and see what sticks the most. Next is having better intake systems. So as I mentioned before, you want to train your intake team a lot and put a lot of effort into this. This is what actually makes the difference. So when we go and we work with firms that have really good intake systems, they get incredible results. We can do the exact same amount of work, the exact same strategies, the exact same everything with a firm that has crappy intake systems, and they're just going to get terrible results. It moves the needle so much. So you want to make sure that your staff is skilled. You want to make sure that they know exactly what to do. You want to make sure that they're actually good on the phone, that they're persuasive. They're not just a customer service rep that's just taking the phone like a telemarketer. They need to be persuasive. They want to sell them on why they should book a consult and give them a really good taste in their mouth about your firm so that they're more likely to retain you. So here are some strategies that you can use. You can develop scripts or templates for the most common types of inquiries. This is going to standardize the process. It's going to make sure that it's consistent, professional, and it reduces the area for human error. Next, you also want to teach your staff how to customize it for each prospect. So if it's a, for example, divorce firm and a lead is crying, you don't want to have the exact same response as to someone that is angry and just has a lot of emotion like that. You need to train your staff on that. You don't want to have a little robot like an AI answering the phone that has the exact same response to both leads. And as I mentioned several times, you want to train your staff on how to use these scripts effectively. So make sure they know when to stick to the script, when it's best to deviate, and how to do so. And reviewing calls consistently with them is super important. And then eventually you can hire someone to review those calls as well. But it's one of the most important things that you could be doing. And even if you think you're the best at this, you can always learn, and there's experts that you can learn from. Maybe there's other firms that you know, other lawyers that are killing it. Talk to them, see what they're doing. You can always learn, and you just want to be really humble with this. Now, I want to get into something that's quite important that I haven't touched on this video yet. So as I mentioned, you pay per lead, which means that you can actually dispute charges. But this actually changed a lot recently. So let's get into it. As mentioned before, not every lead that you receive through local service ads is going to be legitimate. If you receive a lead that doesn't match your practice area or is outside your service area or is otherwise unqualified, you may be eligible to dispute the charge. Now, recently this process has changed. Before, it used to be pretty straightforward where you could just select a button that enabled you to dispute the lead. But what changed is Google is now doing this automatically. In practice, what this has meant is that Google is charging more for leads than they used to in the past, despite the fact that they're saying otherwise. Now, the best way to go about doing this is to rate each lead. Honestly, what I will mention is that you definitely do not want to overdo it with disputes. Think about it. If you dispute 1 in 3 leads and a competitor disputes 1 in 20, well, Google is making significantly more money from the one that's disputing 1 in 20, and they're incentivized to give them more leads than you. So because of this, we tread very lightly when disputing. And also keep in mind that timeliness is very important when it comes to this. If you want to dispute a lead, I would do it as soon as possible. In the past, you would have 30 days and that was it. And I recommend keeping very clear documentation that demonstrates why the charge should be refunded. So I'm actually going to show you a live example of this. This was a good lead that one of our clients received. This was someone that she ended up retaining, and you can see how it looks when you see the lead. So you can see their status, you can see their ID, you can see their numbers at the top, which is blurred out, obviously for confidentiality. Google also records the call, so you can listen to the call, which can be very handy. But you want to go rate this lead. So once you're here, you will see several different options. So how satisfied are you with the quality of this lead? So you can see all of them. For this one, we were actually very satisfied, so that's what we're going to put. And then here you can put whatever it was. It is for a service. It is relevant to the services. It could convert. That's what I'm going to put because that's what it is in this situation. And then here, Google says they're going to try to get you more leads like this. You just want to do this as much as possible. I want to show an example where the lead is actually a bad quality lead. So this is someone that my client could definitely not help with. And if it's not about the person, it's about the situation. So when we go rate this lead just again, as you can see here, how satisfied are you with the quality of this lead? We're very dissatisfied with this one. And for this one, it is you can see the different options. It is not located in the service area. Well, that's not the case for this one. It is for a service the business does not provide. It is this one. The person calling was not ready to book services. It wasn't this one. It is spam. That was not the case with this one. It is a duplicate lead. Also not the case. And it is a person seeking employment or trying to sell a product or service. It is also not that. For this one, it is for a service the business does not provide. So that's what we're going to click on. And here it says, thank you for your feedback. So sometimes it's going to credit them, sometimes it's not. That's just what we've seen. But you always want to do it as honestly as possible. So I hope that covered everything that you need to know about Google local service ads for law firms. Again, if you want access to this document, it should be the first link in the description. If you want any of our help, candidly, we do have something to sell you. We do have services that help law firms. That should be the second link in the description. Go there if you're interested. Don't go if you're not. It's totally up to you. We're going to keep making these videos. We make them once a week. And if you like the video, leave a like. It really helps us. Subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, and leave a comment if you want us to make a video on anything in specific. But I really hope you got value from this video. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks.